Soul Cafe. We are in a brand new series called The Secrets to Success. It's a verse-by-verse teaching through Ecclesiastes. We are looking at Solomon, his life, and his teaching, and we started last week. Hopefully you were with us. If you missed it, you can go back and look at it. First Baptist Delaware, Facebook or YouTube. Check it out. But tonight we are starting chapter 2. So if you have a Bible, Ecclesiastes chapter 2. We also have study notes that are available at fbcde.com. You can check that out as well if you like to fill in the notes. I would love for you to do so. It'll give you something you can look at later and go by. So let's jump in tonight. Remember the motto that said, maybe if you're about my age or around that, if it feels good, do it. I mean, that was the big thing that we said. And we had a lot of hedonism in the 60s and 70s because of that motto. Well, today, it's if it sounds good, post it. Because we're all driven, aren't we, by the need to draw attention to ourselves. Whether you're introvert or extrovert, whether you are powerful or impotent, whether you are someone of position or you're the lowly janitor of the group, no matter where you are in life, whatever your status, whatever your income, we still like to have attention. We're still that little kid in class saying, call on me, call on me. And that's exactly what Solomon was doing. He was plagued by the disease of hedonism. Now, you remember from last week, he is the king of Israel. God had given him riches and honor and wealth and position and prestige. People flocked from all over the world to come hear his wisdom. World leaders were just absolutely awed by his mind and his just grandeur and splendor and glory of his kingdom. But at the end of this, we know that in spite of all that he had, this hedonistic pleasure that was on steroids, Solomon knew that it was all meaningless if God was not at the center of it. Let's look at chapter 2, verse 1. Here's what Solomon says. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But this also proved to be meaningless. Meaningless. Here's a guy that said, I sought pleasure from every possible venue. I gained everything a person could have. It was all meaningless. I mean, I just looked around and it was Christmas every day. I mean, I got anything I wanted. I could ask for something and it was there immediately. But it was all meaningless. He goes on to verse 2. He says, I also laughter is madness. And what does pleasure accomplish? For I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly, but my mind still guided me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the last few days of their life. So he says, first of all, I went hedonistically on steroids. The second thing, crazy and wild entertainment. I mean, this is happy hour every hour of the day. He didn't have to wait till 5 o'clock. It was 5 o'clock somewhere every hour of the day for Solomon. I mean, it was the comedy club every night. The beer flowed, the wine was poured. I mean, you know, there was no last call because there was no last calls. It was drinking 24/7. And the drinking here that he refers to is not a drinking to drunkenness, because he also wrote in Proverbs that it is unwise for a king to get drunk and to limit the amount of drinking that they do. He doesn't prohibit drinking, but he just says, you know, guys, it's probably better that you just do very as little as possible. What he's saying here, this is a drinking that is to produce, to kind of lighten the mind, to soothe the spirit, to relax the feelings. And he says, I had all of that, every kind of drink that you could imagine, all kinds of jest and laughter. It was all meaningless. Look at verse 4 with me. He said, I went on to building projects. I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards. Verse 5, I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs for watering flourishing trees. He says, man, I absolutely went crazy. HGTV knew nothing on this guy. It was demo day every day. Chris Gates, he would have been just in heaven with this guy, because he said, I just built and I built and I tore down and I built again in the same spot, but it was never enough. Notice he goes on, verse 7. He says, I enlarged my staff. I bought male and female slaves, had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. So he says, I hired all these people, but they just couldn't please me. He said, I amassed all kinds of silver and gold, verse 8, for myself, and the treasure of kings and provinces. It says, listen, man, I had more money than I could spend. I mean, my wealth, nobody could come close. And in spite of that, he says, it left me feeling empty. Well, you say, man, what was wrong with this guy? But he goes on, next verse, verse 8, he says, I acquired male and female singers and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. And we know in another part that says he had 1,000 wives and concubines. So women, all shapes, all sizes, all kind of erotic experiences at his beck and call. And he says, each one of them left me feeling lonely. So, how does he summarize all this? Verse 9, he said, I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me, and all this my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired, sort of like people in the middle class today. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor. This was the reward for all my toil. But look what he says in verse 11. But yet I surveyed all that my hands had done, all that I had toiled to achieve, and everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. Notice what these words he uses. Empty, personal valuelessness, personal discouragement, purposelessness. He said, I pursued pleasure and the stimulation of my mind and my body and my spirit. I went through all kinds of amusements, and they were all delusionary. Because why? Because if God is not at the center of all these things, none of these things were wrong to experience. It's just if God is not at the center, they only bring a temporary happiness. There's only a satisfaction for a few seconds. It's like a drug high. It lasts for a few minutes and then it's gone. And then you got to do another one to try to get high again. It's this endless pursuit of trying to find meaning and purpose and happiness, and it can't be done. So many people today are trying to find that today in careers, trying to find it through education, trying to find it through wealth, trying to find it from jumping from a relationship to relation. They are serial relationship jumpers, trying to find the right person in life that will make them happy. And the problem is, nobody can make you happy. Nobody can produce meaning in your life. No one can give you value. Guys, you've got to understand this principle of life that a man that tried everything is telling us tonight. And that is, nobody and nothing can make meaning come into your life and give you value and happiness and joy if God is not at the center of them. So what does that mean when it comes to this area of success? Let me close by giving you a few things on your outline that talks about how Solomon realized success and how he shifted, he pivoted from these things without God to finding success with God. So let's define success first of all. Here's what I believe is a good definition of success. Success is the progressive achievement of the God-intended plans and goals of my life. Let me say that one more time. Success is the progressive achievement of the God-intended plans and goals for my life. In other words, guys, if happiness cannot come through possessions and people and prestige and position, and can only come from working God's plan for my life, which may bring wealth and joy and happiness and prestige and power. See, again, those things are not wrong. Only if they are in the plan and purpose of God for your life. And success is finding out God's plan for my life, His purpose for my existence, and living that plan. So how do you succeed in God's plan? Let me give you 4 or 5 things before we close tonight. Here's the first one on your outline. Achievement over affirmation. If you are a people pleaser, you're going to be constantly discouraged by people. Because people will let you down. People will walk away. People will come and go. I mean, some people come for a season and some people come for a reason. I say goodbye to a lot of people in ministry. They came for a season. But the people that stick with me, that are loyal to the cause, loyal to the vision of the house, they came for a reason. God sent them, and they stay because God sent them. And I've just learned over the last 4.5 decades of being a pastor, you can't please people. And if you are a people pleaser, always trying to make people happy, always trying to get the read of your value based on how they perceive you, you're going to be one discouraged, disappointed person. You see, in life, guys, there are givers and takers. And there's about 10 times more takers than there are givers. You better find some people in your life that are givers, that pour into your life, that benefit you, that you can walk the journey with and move forward because of what they invest in your life. Here's the second key to success. Engagement over entitlement. See, I hear people all the time say, I think life should provide for me. And listen, somebody, if they provide for you, paid a price to provide for you. I mean, this whole thing of student loan forgiveness right now just irks me to the nth degree because I worked my way. I mean, I worked in a cafeteria. I had a bum car. I didn't have good clothes. I didn't live in a nice apartment. I didn't have good anything. Why? Because I worked for my degree. And yet people are going into $100,000 worth of debt and then expecting me, the middle class taxpayer, to pay for it. Now again, if you have student loans, not getting on you, I'm just saying. Nothing is free. It costs somebody to provide for you. So you've got to live a life of engagement. How can I do this without going into debt? How can I achieve this without stepping on people and making them feel inferior to me? How can I do this in a way that brings glory and pleasure to the Lord? Guys, listen, when it comes to success, you are not entitled to anything. We may not all start out at the same place in life. Some are born rich, some poor, some middle class, some are born in poverty, some are born in very low income, not much education focused areas. Some are born, with Ivy League schools in their blood. I want to say this to you. We don't all start out at the same place, but in America, I believe we can all get to the place that God wants you specifically to be. And that comes by engaging life, not living a life of entitlement. Here's the third thing that I want to give you for success secrets. Thirdly, problems are there to get you promoted. I tell people all the time, listen, find out what the problem is your boss does not handle or want to handle, and you do it. You solve it. That's how you get promoted. Take on a problem nobody else will take on. Try to solve a problem that everybody else is avoiding. You will bring value, into that company. And the bosses' eye will gravitate towards you because bosses hate problems. They want them solved. Good bosses do. Entrepreneurs want problems to be solved. You become a problem solver, and I guarantee you that's going to be the key. A problem is always a lever that God uses to get you promoted. I love what Charles Lindbergh said. He said, success is not measured by what a man accomplishes, but by the opposition he has encountered and the courage with which he has maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. It will be hard. It will be tough. It will be agonizing. It will drain you. Problems, nobody likes them. It's like the measles. We don't like it, but listen, you solve it and promotion will come. Here's the next thing on the secrets to success. Excellence in endurance. You see, excellence has nothing to do with personality or luck or talent. It's a matter of intentionality. I love what Willow Foster says. Quality is never an accident. It's always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. Listen, excellence just doesn't come. Excellence is a result of hard work. Excellence is finding out how can you improve this 1% better. Excellence is getting the right people around you that can push this envelope a little further down the way. Excellence is achieving things with knowing that you did your very best. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be excellent. And you have to endure a lot to get that kind of excellence. That's a secret to success. Here's another one. Attitude to propel your altitude. Attitude to propel, that's a mouthful. Attitude to propel your altitude. Your altitude, listen guys, your altitude is always dependent upon your attitude. You go higher in life based upon the attitude that you have. And if you are a Debbie Downer, if you're a problem-focused Paul, if you're a person that is negative Nettie, I'm going to tell you, those are people that just never know the joy of success. I mean, real success. It stymies their growth. It prevents them being part of God's plan for their life. So, listen, guys, your attitude sets the atmosphere wherever you are. And while you can't control other people's attitudes, you can control yours. In fact, your attitude is the only thing you can control in life. So you decide to be positive. You decide to build up. You decide to add value. You decide, even if you're not getting anything from it, even if initially it seems like a wasted effort, even when other people don't admire what you're doing or even criticize what you're doing, you choose the proper attitude. I love what Boston Celtic Bill Russell once said. He said, the game is scheduled. We have to play it. We might as well win. I love that because I love winning. If you're going to play in the game of life, go in it that you're going to win. Here's the next thing. To see the best in those who belong around me. This is the next secret of success, to see the best in those who belong around me. Folks, you can always find fault in the people God put around you. You can always look and say that person's not doing that, they should be doing that, they need to get better in that. You can always point that out. But it's a lot better when you put a 10 on everybody's head. When you look for the good in that person. And when you look for the good in a person, when you look for that which has value and positive, even in the midst of their only working at 80% of the level that probably they could, even when they're an irritant, even when they just don't show up when they're supposed to show up, you call out the good in another person. I'm saying that is a secret to success. In fact, Carl Menninger put it this way, the psychiatrist: generous people are rarely mentally ill people. Be a generous person. Here's the next thing of success: persistence, no matter how big the problem. Listen, let challenges spur you to creativity. I love what Cyrus Curtis, who once owned the Saturday Evening Post, had a sign on his desk, and it said, "Yesterday ended last night." You can't do anything about yesterday. You can only deal with today. You can plan for the future, but all you've got is today. You persist through today. Forget about tomorrow and don't worry about, or forget about yesterday and don't worry about tomorrow. Today is right before you. Guys, let the challenges of today spur your mind to ideas on how you become creative to get past them into tomorrow. Here's the next thing: goals which give you a go. Goals would give you a go. Andrew Carnegie once put it this way: you cannot push anyone up a ladder unless he's willing to climb himself. Don't you love that? Listen, you can't yank people up ladders. You can't push people up ladders. The only thing you can do is climb the ladder yourself. If there's a ladder in front of you, it's meant to be climbed. That is the goal. Your goal. We say, well, how do I set a goal? Listen, here's how you set goals. Determine where you are and where you want to be and by what date. Listen, a goal without a deadline is a ditch, and you'll fall into it and not accomplish anything. What must you overcome? What do you have now that can get you to where you want to be? What will it cost you to get there? And what specific actions are you going to take to get to where you want to be? Be a person that has goals. So let me give you this last one: responsibility over rampant blame. Take responsibility. Once you're responsible for how you think and what you dwell on and how you respond, you stop blaming other people. Listen, blaming always boomerangs on you. Blaming always burns up energy. Success is not looking back with regret. I love what the early Puritans, when they came to the U.S., said: "I want to die well." How do you die well? Listen, guys, you have the right attitude. You persist in spite of problems. You push forward. You do what Booker T. Washington said, and I close here: success is not to be measured so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles by which he's overcome while trying to succeed. See, how do you die well? How do you live a successful life? How do you live a life of meaning and happiness? I just jotted a few things down on the way in this morning. I want to be known. Here's how I want to die well. Here's how I want to die known as a successful person. I've been faithful to my wife. I've been loving to my children. I set an example for my grandchildren. I helped people without expectation of return. I lived an authentic life. My outward behavior matched my inner desire to please God in all things. Because when it all comes down to it, success is this: knowing God and His plan for my life. Working God's plan in and through my life. Persisting in God's plan even when everything is coming against me. And then ending my life knowing I did, as David said, I fulfilled God's purposes for my life. Can I pray for you tonight as we kind of reflect? I know I gave you a lot of principles and rapid fire, but I don't want to just with your eyes close, your heart before God. If tonight you would just look at your life. Is it on idle, or are you moving forward? Are you experiencing some measure of success, or are you falling down and never getting back up? Are you achieving some goals, or did you abandon your goal because it got hard? Tonight, Father, I pray that every person listening, writing down notes, getting your word, can learn what Solomon learned. The way to be successful in life is to live the plan of God for my life. I pray that for every person tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, guys, we're going to close tonight by just flashing up our giving slide. Excuse me. Take a moment to look at it and give electronically, or you can send a check in, or if you come to our church and bring it in on Sunday. It's a way of supporting what God's about to do this fall. Hopefully, you'll be part of all that God is going to experience for your life as you fulfill His plan for your success in life. We'll see you next week at Soul Cafe.